everyone. I am Erika Kaiser, and today I'm going to be your TILLY host for this episode that is brought to you by Lupus Foundation of New England. Today, we're going to be speaking with Marisa Sapieri, and she's going to be talking about her new memoir, Chronically Fabulous. Marisa, welcome, and thank you for sharing your space here with me.
Hi, Erica. Hi, everyone that's watching. Thank you so much for letting me come on here. I'm sort of in a different role today. A lot of you know that I usually host TILLY, but today we have the amazing Erika Kaiser, and she's actually going to interview me about my new memoir, which is also a cookbook and also a self-help book. It's a little bit of everything, and thank you. I'm really excited.
For those who doesn't know Marisa, can you tell us a little bit more about your journey with lupus?
My story started about 20 years ago when I was diagnosed with systemic lupus. Like a lot of people probably listening right now, I have a very specific trigger that I can sort of pinpoint that happened right before I was diagnosed. And that was, I was run over and hit by a drunk driver in a pickup truck when I was crossing the street. And that led to over a year in recovery, and then a lot of my symptoms coming out while I was in the middle of recovery. So it's been quite a journey. I have had really no true remission in 20 years. I've always had like active lupus. And for me, lupus has always attacked my blood. I've had like blood clots and vasculitis and a brain aneurysm and my heart and, you know, just usual like rashes, fever, things like that, severe fatigue that a lot of people deal with. And, you know, it has taught me a lot of things about myself. It helped me sort of push me to start Lupus Chick, which is our online social community, which has just grown and grown into, gosh, we reach almost 500,000 people a month. And yeah, it's brought a lot of amazing things in my life, even though it can be a really hard and challenging disease.
Well, Marisa, first of all, I want to say congratulations because I know your community. And I know that you are helping a lot of people, and I think that's amazing. And I think that we want to know how is that this came up and the idea for start writing this story.
So I feel like I've always loved to write ever since I was little. So I think it was just something that was like very natural for me. But once I was diagnosed, I'd say those first like 5 or 6 years, I really spent the majority of my time trying to sort of figure out like this new life that I had. So in the very beginning, I didn't tell anyone that I had lupus. There were years that went by and no one knew except for my immediate family. And I was somewhat embarrassed. I lived in a city of like 2 million people, and I only knew one other person with lupus. And the few times that I did mention it, people were sort of taken back and they had a lot of questions. They didn't know what it was. They wanted to know if it was contagious. Could they get it from me? And I think I just started to feel really embarrassed. And so I said nothing. And then as the years went by and I started to learn a little bit more about it, how it affected me, how I can sort of rework different areas of my life and gain like a little bit more control, I felt more comfortable talking about it. And then Lupus Chick started, and that sort of just sprung up this entire platform of really sharing our stories and helping others, but not just living with these chronic illnesses that we have, really just figuring out like what our gifts are, what our purpose is, how we can still accomplish all the things that we want to do, even though we have this diagnosis or we have multiple diagnoses. So it was in my mind for a very, very long time, but I felt like almost like when you're cooking something on the stove, you know, and it's got to sit there for a couple of hours and sort of like marinate. This wasn't ready yet. Like I just knew in my gut it wasn't the right time. So I would write a little bit here and there over the years. And then about 3 years ago, it just hit me. And I said, you know what? I've had this now for 17 years. I feel like I have a wealth of knowledge that I want to share with other people. And there's like, that's sort of my thing that I want to give to the world. And that's really when I went like full force with it. It was about 3 years ago.
You mentioned something very important, and it's like patients that has this type of diseases. It's not only about talking about the illness, we have a lot much more to offer, and I think that you can find that in your book, because it's not only about your illness, it's about your whole story and all the things that you have learned.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the thing I want people to know, like Chronically Fabulous is it's a memoir, yes, but it's also really a self-help book for everyone that reads it, because I want everyone else out there to realize that they are not just the sick girl or the guy that has lupus, or we're not going to be known as like the girl that gave up. Like, no, like there's so much more inside of us. We still have like all of the talents and all the gifts that we had before we were diagnosed. They're still there. Like, I'm still Marissa at my core, even though I have like new challenges because of lupus. So it really helps anyone that has a chronic illness just dig deep, really think about the things that they love. What do people tell you that you're good at? What makes you excited? Like when you think about it, if you had like one opportunity to sort of like live your dream life or have your dream job, like what are those things? And it's really about reflecting and meditating and believing in yourself. Like, we have to eventually, you and I talk about this a lot, the way we talk to ourselves. And when we are sick and when we don't feel well, or we have these diagnoses that are very unexpected, it's natural to go through a really difficult time and almost feel like the sky's falling, right? But that's not the end of it. Like, there's still so much more. So my goal with this book was, no matter what, at the end of the day, there is still hope, and we can still do all the things we wanted to. It just may not look like we originally imagined.
Marisa, who should read Chronically Fabulous?
Honestly, anyone that has a chronic illness, has experienced some type of traumatic event, a caregiver, a spouse, a partner, a friend, or anyone that is just looking for hope. Maybe they have no chronic illness, or maybe they haven't had like this severe traumatic event, but they are looking for some hope and some inspiration in their life. Maybe they are just starting a faith journey. And gosh, there's such a wide range for Chronically Fabulous. Also, there's a whole recipe and food section in there. So for anyone that loves good food, I was raised by an old school Italian grandmother who started cooking at like 6 o'clock every morning, and we would cook together a lot. And so I put a lot of my just most cherished recipes in the book, but I sort of tweaked a lot of them for people that have chronic illness or have autoimmune disease, because we tend to have to eat a little bit different, or it helps with some of our symptoms. So there's food in there. I feel like there's something for everyone in there.
So everyone should read this book. And now that you're talking about these recipes, I know that you are working on other book that is just special for nutrition.
Yeah, so I have a couple of other ideas in the works that really revolve around food and autoimmune disease, and just the amount of energy that it takes. Because I feel like that is one of the biggest struggles that a lot of us deal with is, we need to eat and feed and nourish our body in a certain way. But when you're really sick and you have very limited energy, what is the best way to do that? So that's sort of the area that I'm hoping to dive into next. But first, I have to do everything with Chronically Fabulous.
That's great. And Marisa, tell me where we can find Chronically Fabulous.
So right now, Chronically Fabulous is available on pre-order, which means you can go on to Amazon, you can go on to Barnes and Nobles, you can even go to my publisher, which is Broadleaf Books. You can pre-order it, and it will basically just stay in your cart. And on May 4th, when it is out and released in the world for Lupus Awareness Month, it will ship. And it will also be available in select stores from May 4th on.
Marisa, if I ask you, where is the main message that you want to give to the community with your book, which is?
I think if I had to sort of condense Chronically Fabulous into a few sentences, it would be to not let a diagnosis or a disability or a definition define the rest of your life. I could have very easily just, when I was diagnosed, just said, I'm the girl that has lupus and that's the rest of my life. But that was just unacceptable to me. I just had so many things that I wanted to do with my life and so many adventures that I wanted to go on and just learn things. And I didn't want to resign myself to what the doctors told me. It's basically what I have. And I didn't want that to become who I am. So my hope is that Chronically Fabulous gives them the motivation, the encouragement, the love, the support for them to know that, their journey, it's from this day, it's just beginning. Like there's still so much that we can do. Again, it might look a little bit different. It may not be the path that you originally decided for or hoped for, but I still think that there is so much possible for all of us in our lives.
That's great, Marisa. Thank you so much. And thank you, because I know that there's a lot of people that really needs to know about this information and to get to know your story. And most of all, because they have to think that it's not just about the illness, it's much more out there, and we are capable to do much more instead of only having an illness. So Marisa, I have here Chronically Fabulous, and I would like to know which one is your favorite chapter.
So I don't know if I have a favorite chapter. I have a couple of chapters that definitely stand out that I would love to share a little bit about, because I feel like it gives people a little better understanding of what's in the actual book. So one of the chapters that I talk about in Chronically Fabulous is about our relationships, right? And how when we are diagnosed or we have this chronic illness now, a lot of our relationships tend to change. And that could be amazing, and it can also be very difficult. So I always liken lupus to water. I like to tell people that it seeps into everything and into every like little nook and cranny. So one of the areas that it will seep into is our relationships, whether it's with our friends or with like our people that we're intimate with, our lovers, our partners. And, some people, unfortunately, in your life will not stick around when you have a chronic illness, when things change, when you can't participate as much, when you can't go out anymore, for a season. Some people just naturally won't stick around. And that's okay. And I talk about that. Also, how about for people that want to start dating? Like, what does that look like? How do you bring this up to people? Even like for your employer, like when do you bring it up to people? Like these are things that we all sort of have to navigate our way through. So that's one of my favorite chapters. And I think also early on in the book, another chapter that I love, because I really explore like my spiritual journey in this book, and how when I was in the hospital, my mom, told me the story of Job, which is still one of my favorite stories. And just how when this man lost everything, right? And he had every reason, at least as far as we can see, to ask like, God, why? Why are you doing this to me? And that is a question that so many people I've spoken to have asked me, why did this happen to me? And I think that that's just a natural question as humans that we ask. So what does that look like? And how does God respond to us when we ask that question? I have a whole chapter just on that, because I feel like that is relatable to everyone, no matter if you have lupus, if you have RA, if you have MS, it doesn't matter. It's something that, many of us will ask at one point.
And even if you don't have an illness, Marisa, I think this is life. And it's very common when people ask to themselves, why is this happening this to me? And maybe we should ask another thing, like what do I have to learn about this?
I definitely agree. So that was like something that I like to tell people is it's not just for people that have chronic illness. It could be if you have like some type of trauma, if you've had just a major event in your life. It is a very common question. Why is this happening to me? Sometimes we feel like it's just us. It's not just us. So we all go through stuff. But like you said, what am I learning through this experience? that hopefully I won't repeat again, later? Or how is this refining me in some way? How is this building resilience? How is this building my character? What is God trying to show me through all of this? Like, there are different ways that we can look at it that change from, and it's normal to kind of feel like victimized, like, why am I going through this, to an empowered state of, what can I do with this?
And instead of victims, we can be victors, as we said a lot.
Yes.
That. So
Absolutely.
Another thing that I want to ask you, Marisa, is I know your story. I know that you have been struggling a lot. And at the same time, you have been living amazing things in your life. So how was for you writing that and remembering all that stuff that you went through?
So Chronically Fabulous, once I had decided that I was going to move forward with this, and I had the publisher that was interested, which was Broadleaf Books, I spent 6 months finishing the entire manuscript. And there were several weeks throughout that process where I had to talk about seasons of my life that were so difficult. A large portion of this book has my grandmother in it, because she basically raised me, and she was there through all of this, and eventually she passes away. So that was a very difficult chapter. And the chapter of just being diagnosed and being hit, it wasn't the easiest thing to do, but the interesting thing is being able to look at it years later. I guess I didn't see myself so intimately connected to it anymore. I was sort of looking at it almost like a bystander. I think in my brain somehow I've compartmentalized everything, and I've gone through therapy, and I've sort of worked through stuff. And while those things do make me sad in some way, I think more I'm in this place of being so grateful. Like, I'm so lucky that I had an amazing grandmother, like, and the things that she taught me, and that we were so close, because I know people my age or younger that are not close with their grandparents at all. And that's just a generation that the things that they can teach you, like, you can't learn that from anyone else. So I just look at it as, like, I was so blessed to have like 30 years with this woman. And I was so blessed that, like, even though I was hit by a truck and most people don't make it to the hospital, I made it. Like, I survived something that should not have been survivable. So I looked at it a lot differently than I had many years ago.
I think when you're talking, think about the blessings that we have. A lot of the times we are thinking about all the bad stuff that we have been going through as a patients with this type of illness, that they are very rare and they are very difficult. But then we have to step back and see what are the things that have changed in our lives, and maybe we are so much more stronger, and we are able to say, I was so blessed because I lived something that maybe was very difficult at the first time, but now it has changed.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more.
Marisa, thank you so much. And please, you have to buy this book, Chronically Fabulous. It's amazing. And of course, you have to check it out, lupuschick.com.
Thank you so much, Erica, for having me here and interviewing me. And thank you for everyone for listening. Let me know if you have any questions. Definitely come check us out at lupuschick.com. The book is right there on the front page. If you want to learn more, you can read a synopsis. You can get like your free little snippet of it and whatnot. So I hope that whoever does check it out, I hope that you love it.
Thank you, Marisa. And of course, thank you to Lupus Foundation of New England for having this TILLY episode. I am Erica Kaiser, and we are going to see you in the next one.